In studio, I welcome back Professor Susan Booysen, who is the Director of Research at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, and analyst Levy Ndou. Thank you so much for staying with us and continuing this conversation. Well, plenty happening on the ground. We've seen some protests. I mean, we're also seeing just, it's a spirit that I haven't seen in a while in terms of, so much dissonance. People are really despondent. There's not only voter apathy, but there's also disappointment, from people that we're hearing on the ground. I haven't seen any report that indicates to me that people know exactly who they are going to vote for. And we were picking up on, just some of the things that we are seeing on the ground. But talk to us now about just how important it is, because we are hearing that some people do not actually want to vote. Talk to us about what that would mean and look like, Levy, if people decide to stay away, because already we know that the numbers are low.
Well, it will mean a lot of things. Firstly, it will be an indication that they have lost hope and trust to the political leaders. And when you have a situation where citizens will come out and say, we're no longer interested in voting, they're actually saying, it is fine, you can do your own things. We're actually tired. And I think if you look at the development of things that has just happened in the last few days, whatever reason you would provide, the power cuts in South Africa happening whilst we're actually heading towards the elections. And having power failures at the National Results Center. It's some of the issues that indeed ordinary citizens will say, but what is it that is actually going on with those that are given the responsibility to run a government and to provide basic services? And for me, it's also a message to political parties, especially the leaders, to say maybe political parties are not doing their best to provide communities with the right people to do the right job. Because it is not only coming during these elections that will have people saying we've always been promised or things are not done properly. It has always been happening in other elections. And of course, you all still don't see political parties responding in a manner that will satisfy the needs of ordinary people on the ground.
Professor Booysen, just picking up from what Levy is saying, and in fact, let's just pause for now, because I really want to talk about the coalition element. But let's go to the Western Cape now, where we'll find our reporter Mariska Botha. She's in Worcester, Breeda Valley. Let's get an update from her, and then we'll continue with this conversation. Mariska, thank you so much for your time. Talk to me about what's happening on the ground there.
I was listening now to what your analysts and experts were saying there, and I must say I'm no expert when it comes to these things, but across the Breeda Valley, all the towns that we visited, we travelled from Worcester, De Torens, Touws River, we saw people going out in quite a bit in their numbers. We've seen queues where we went, and we've actually had a few people telling us they don't mind waiting to vote because they want to vote, they want to cast their ballot. And actually what your expert was also saying there, many people feeling that the right people are not in charge, the right leaders are not in charge. That's what we heard from the small town of Touws River that we just returned from about half an hour ago, where people say they're voting for exactly that reason. They want new leadership, they want to turn the town around, because Touws River is one of those small rural towns that's slowly dying. There simply isn't any industry, there isn't economic activity, so people are really suffering and struggling there. So what we've seen in the Breeda Valley, which is a section of the Western Cape, we've seen people come out to vote. Yesterday was very quiet, and the day before, but certainly from this morning, all the voting stations open at 7, and people were out there voting. They were casting their ballots. We're back in Worcester where we started this morning, and we're still seeing people coming to this, one of the big voting stations within the area, still coming in to cast their ballots. So we've seen a little bit of a different picture. What the final tallies will say, we won't know until the next few days. But what we've seen on the ground is slightly different to what we've heard from your experts saying there. But of course, there's still time until later tonight. If everybody will turn up, we simply don't know. But what they were saying about leadership is very true. And that's what the people on the ground are telling us as well. They want new leadership, and they actually just want leadership in towns like Touws River, where they say nothing much is happening because there is no leadership.
Mariska, what you're saying is very encouraging. As I said, a lot of people that we've, spoken to and our reporters have spoken to in various parts of the country are really painting a very bleak picture. But tell me, in those long queues where you are, do you see a lot of young people? Because we know that this is the missing electorate. We know that, 13 million of eligible voters are in that youth bracket. What are some of the people that you are seeing, that you've spoken to, are saying? And are they the youth?
Actually, they are. In that very same town where we came from a half an hour ago, we saw quite a few young people in the queue. There's one gentleman whose name I remember because it's so wonderful. His name is Jetem Grootboom. And he told us he's a young person. He wants to see economic activity come to his town. And he understands by casting his vote, he has a say in what happens in his future. So we've seen quite a few young people, but the majority are still the more mature people that come out to cast their ballots. Certainly we've seen a lot of elderly people, not as many young people as you would like, but we have certainly seen young people coming out to the polls and telling us they want to effect change, understanding that this vote, the municipal vote, is the one that matters because it's the person down the road from you who is responsible to answer to you for the services you get. And those young people in Touws River telling us that's why they're voting. Yes?
Mariska, thank you so much. We'll definitely catch up with you, during the course of the day and before those polls close. Thank you so much for your time there. Mariska Mapungubwe coming to us there from Worcester, Breeda Valley. But let's continue here now. If you've just joined us, we are coming to you live from the IEC's National Results Operations Center, otherwise known as the ROC. We're speaking to various political analysts. We're also talking to various of our journalists who are across the country giving us blow-by-blow accounts on what is happening on the ground. Professor Booysen, let's talk about just some of the things that we've just heard from Mariska. So you know which party you are going to vote for, but your party then decides to go into a coalition with another party. Of course, coalition parties are not something new to South Africa. We've seen them being introduced in 2016, yes. But the concern there again comes in terms of the leadership of these two parties that now need to provide service in whatever municipality, whatever district, yes. Whatever ward. Talk to me about the concern around coalition parties.
Yes. But the supporters of so many of the political parties, especially in the last term, 2016 to 21, have observed and have learned so much that was actually negative and adverse to good democratic developmental governance in the operation of these coalitions that we've seen. There's been such a preoccupation with gaining power, political individual parties hoping to get what they couldn't get in the 2016 election. Absolutely. And hoping to achieve that through coalitions with a range of types of political parties after the election. And there's been such a preoccupation with gaining and regaining political power and musical chairs and taking it back again, that in many of these cases, communities have really been neglected. And there has been, not only in coalition governments, but certainly in coalition governments, even more than in others, a tendency to make deals, and some corruption has been, further corruption in some cases was elicited. And so the concern of the citizens often came second.
All right, Prof, let's hold it there. We'll come back to this. I want to bring you both into this. But perhaps let's go now to the floor of the IEC Centre where the chairman of the IEC is speaking, Mr. Glenn Mashinini. Let's take you there now.
We now have 5 women out of the 9 provinces that are now the POs. And if you go to our voting stations, we're brought in young people and youngsters, and predominantly they are women. And that's why we are appealing about that. We can no longer afford aggression, attacks, when we're talking about the voting station personnel, because we will be acting against our national agenda, that we want to make sure that our young people, especially young women, they carry the baton. And so what we want to hand is the posterity that will be in a position to say, yes, our predecessors have left us equipped to take our democracy project forward.
Chair, but we are happy thus far.
Also, I'm very pleased and very, very proud of what we as the country are achieving in terms of the democracy project. Yes, very happy.
Thank you so much, Chair. All the best.
You saw the smile.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Okay,
Well, of course, we're
Susan,
coming to you live from the IEC's Results Operations Center here in Tshwane. That's the nerve center for the IEC, where the results will start trickling in sometime tomorrow when obviously the voting is concluded. But we are here as the SABC bringing you live coverage, blow-by-blow accounts in terms of what you are saying on the ground. Our reporters are crisscrossing across various regions, provinces and communities, and we'll continue to bring you, this live coverage. We'll also speak to our expert analysts on just what we are seeing during these 2021 local government elections.